Welcome back, everybody. This is Handsome Guy Gaming. Today, we are taking a deep dive into the history of the greatest survival horror franchise ever created. That would be Left 4 Dead. When we look back at the polished, fast-paced run and gun masterpiece of both the first and second games, it's easy to assume they were always designed that way, but the truth is, the cutting room floor for these games is absolutely covered in scrapped ideas, bizarre mechanics, and terrifying monsters that never saw the light of day. Today, we're going to explore how Left 4 Dead and Left 4 Dead 2 evolved and why cutting these features actually saved the game. Let's get into it. Left 4 Dead is legendary for its relentless pacing, but during early development, the game was flooded with complex mechanics and RPG elements. The core design philosophy ultimately became addition by subtraction, ruthlessly removing anything that slowed the player down or confused the combat loop. Let's start with our original four survivors. In the early days of development, Valve had very different plans for the cast personalities. Bill, the second seasoned veteran, was originally written to be incredibly paranoid, constantly terrified that his team would turn to zombies. This was cut because it discouraged the core theme of the game, teamwork. So originally sported a much more tactical, military-focused outfit, and there was even a planned romantic subplot between her and Francis. But narrative bloat is real, and the romance was scrapped to keep the pacing relentless. Speaking of Francis, our favorite biker was actually a towering 6'5", big fella, but he was shrunk down just to keep visual consistency across the team. And Lois, the relentlessly optimistic guy we all love, was originally a highly pessimistic religious character who constantly picked fights with Bill. And now let's talk about the real stars of the show. The Special Infected. The Hunter used to be an absolute nightmare. Early concepts had him clinging to ceilings, regenerating health, and turning completely invincible. The Smoker was just a wild, uh, originally designed to teleport through smoke clouds and literally hug survivors to death. The Boomer we know today vomits bile, but originally he spewed boiling hot, high temperature blood that dealt massive direct damage. And before the Boomer, there was the Screamer, an asylum patient who would run away and scream to summon the Horde. He was out simply because chasing him wasn't fun. Finally, the Witch. Originally, she could attack the entire team at once with a massive area of effect damage. She had to be nerfed to a single target threat, otherwise she was just an unfair team-wide machine. Even the companions themselves saw massive overhauls. No Mercy originally had completely different layouts, zero crescendo events. Dead Air had secret tutorial maps used for testing. There was even a completely lost campaign called Damn It, meant to bridge Dead Air and Blood Harvest, which was abandoned early on. In mechanics, we almost had an RPG style perk system with Kevlar vests, laser sights, and flashbangs. Even the bomb originally didn't beep or blink. It was just an explosive that zombies ignored, making it completely useless until the lore mechanic was added. But what happens, the quiet phone, when you take everything learned from the first game and immediately start a sequel? Enter Left 4 Dead 2, you might think Coach, Elias, Nick, and Rochelle were entirely new concepts for 2009, but as detailed in the timeline from the current screenshot you're seeing, the origins of the second survivor group actually date all the way back to 2005. Developers had these archetypes waiting for in the wings, Rochelle specifically went through a massive identity crisis during development, holding many different jobs before the team finally settled on making her a news producer. Left 4 Dead 2 ramped up chaos with new special infected, the Charger, the Spitter, the Jockey, and the Bomet. But the concepts that got left behind were fascinating. Early files show an infected called the Claws, which actually just turned out to be a working prototype for the Charger. But then we have the truly bizarre concepts, the Meat Wall, the Ratman, and the Leaker. The Leaker, for example, was a hybrid concept that would plant itself and explode, acting like a living landmine. We also saw the introduction of uncommon infected, like the fallen survivor, giving us a grim look at what happens to those who thought they were prepared. From the fiery halls of Dead Center to the harrowing bridge finale and the parish, Left 4 Dead 2's fiends are iconic, but the mechanics we use to navigate them almost looks very different. Early versions tested friendly fire on bio bombs, meaning if you hit a teammate, the horde would swarm them instead of the zombies. They also tested dual wielding and breakable melee weapons, which would shatter after too much use. Most aggressively, there was a visceral curb stomping mechanic, and just like in the first game's early builds, they experimented with allowing incapacitated players to crawl away from danger. Looking at the bar scope, the Blizzard's Left 4 Dead 2 was surrounded by fascinating what-ifs. There were murmurs and technical explosions of bringing Left 4 Dead 2 to the PS3, though it remained an Xbox and PC staple of the franchise. There was also plans for various different release editions that never fully materialized when you look at the sheer volume of content from the Ratman to Breakable Bats. It becomes clear how vastly different Left 4 Dead 2 could have been. So why were all these amazing, terrifying complexities scrapped? Because complexity is the enemy of pacing. Everything that we cut from Left 4 Dead 1 and 2 was removed because it hampered the core experience. Invisible Hunter isn't scary, it's frustrating. A breakable melee weapon in the middle of a swamp beaver horde doesn't add tension, it ruins the flow. The developers at Valve's profaneness and readability, they understood that the beauty of franchise isn't the RPG mechanics and overly complex monsters. It's the frantic adrenaline fueled teamwork realized the simplicity of surviving the apocalypse, and that's a brief look back at that chaotic development of these legendary games. It really makes you appreciate the fine-tuning that goes into making a classic. Let me know down in the comments which cut feature you wish had made it into the final game. Do you wish you could have fought the meat wall or maybe curb stomped a hunter? Let me know. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you in the next one. So, if that's what you enjoyed, please like, comment, subscribe, hit that notification bell. Also, answer me this: will there ever be a Left 4 Dead 3 for current gen systems? If not, please comment below. This is Handsome Guy Gaming, and I am out.